Pleasure to welcome you to this evening screening of Shirkers. I want to thank our premier venue sponsor. We're so happy to be here again at SFMoMA in this beautiful theater. I want to thank our co-presenters for this screening, Film Fatales. Thanks for helping get the word out about the screening. I want to thank Netflix, who will be distributing this film, so you can see it on the screen here and then watch it again in May, I think, sometime. We'll talk about that later. In the fall. Anyway, this film is also one of 10 documentary films that is part of our documentary feature competition. It's a juried competition. And it's for emerging filmmakers, which we kind of define loosely. But this film is such an interesting part of that because Sandy has been around filmmaking for so long, and it took quite a while for this film to emerge, but that is the beauty of the film and the story. And we're so glad that she's here to share it with us in person. So please welcome the director of Shirkers, Sandy.
Just take this off for a second. Thanks for being here. Just wanted to say thank you for not being young and thin enough to be at Coachella this weekend. But thanks for being here. And really, it's, you know, to be playing this film at MoMA is just amazing. I'm just starstruck to be in this building, even though it's a separate entrance. It's like the staff entrance is close to the main entrance. I was just there, and I have the sticker. I'm not going to take this off for a while. And I was just here like 2 years ago to see the Bruce Conner show, which changed my life. I mean, that was with you, actually. And okay, so it's a strange thing. I'm not going to say too much. I'm not going to talk too much in the beginning because I'm going to be talking a lot at the end. And I'm going to be talking a lot throughout the film, so you're going to be so sick of me. I'm just going to be really brief about this, but it's so strange to be here and to be well, I've known Rachel for 18 years, and she didn't say that, but I'm saying it. And I don't think about, you know, like, I don't think I ever brought this thing up ever. This whole story. And I'm gonna get this girl so drunk while you watch the movie, and we'll come back for the Q&A smash. So that'll be really interesting. So I'm gonna say, yeah, I'm gonna say much more because you're gonna be so tired of me by the end of this movie. But do stick around and talk to me and yell at me because I know you do that in San Francisco. But do stay and ask me things, and I do see you. The sister of Jasmine. Anyway, that's a spoiler. But anyway, amazing. Talk to you later. See you.
Can you turn down the air conditioning?
Well, yeah, got it. Blanket to where AC's working on. See what we can do.
First, Sandy's dad.
Thanks for staying. That's a lot of you. Thanks for staying.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask the first couple of questions and then turn it over to you. And the first question really isn't even so much a question as to ask you to talk a little bit about from the time that you heard from George's widow that this footage existed, the sort of timeline until when you figured out that you wanted to make this film from that footage.
Psychological timeline of all this. Okay, so, you know, this is like years of me thinking I had this thing, and I was talking about it, and I learned to shut up about it. Like, I've known you 18 years, and I don't think I ever talked about this, ever. I don't think you knew about any of this, and this is me being a crazy person like, I'm such a great keeper of secrets, I guess.
Yes.
and like, you know, none of my friends knew, and I just had learned to just put this away and shut up about it. And then, so what happened was, in 2011, she wrote to me on September 11th, I guess was a significant anniversary, and she felt like she had to reach some kind of closure. I guess she found me on the internet because I had a website because I was trying to publish a book, and I actually did publish that book. But so she wrote to me, and she, began corresponding, and she, said, I found these 70 cans of film labeled Shirkers, and are you interested in getting it back? And I'm like, yeah, I am. But but the thing is, I had to deal with this past that I had buried in a significant way. I just didn't want to see or hear myself because I didn't know there was no sound then, and I just didn't want to deal with this horrible teenage zombie performance that I gave, and I just remember being horrible. And anyway, so she sent me the stuff, and she sent me these boxes, and she began sending me these boxes, and they weren't just film. It was like storyboards, slides, and bits of like receipts and everything, because he saved everything because he was a pack rat like me. And so the boxes began appearing in my house. Like she would have like one box, and I didn't want to deal with it because I had a book that was coming out, and I was concerned with dealing with that part of my life and just moving on. So the boxes arrived, and I stacked them in this corner of my house because I just didn't want them to take too much space, so they would have the smallest footprint ever. So I would stack them up, because that's the way you get the smallest footprint. And so they would like this, and then the next box came, and I stacked it on top of that one, and then it became like this vertical coffin, basically. It became a sarcophagus, like a mummy's tomb or something in my house, and it just stood there basically for, like 3 years. And I just, and finally my husband said, you just got to do something about this thing, because, it's just sitting in the living room and driving the cats crazy. So I then, and then the grandmother had to die. So then I could do something with the film with the money that I got from her. And I took it to this lab, and nobody knows what to do with 16 anymore. So I found this lab in Burbank, California, that does a lot of the Criterion discs and the transfers of those things. I was nerdy enough to research which one did what, and who did the Cirque films, and who did the Wes Anderson films. Anyway, so this place did that. And I brought these things to them, and they opened the cans up, and each of the little, I guess I should explain to some of these kids who are not quite 30 yet, what film is, and it's rows of things, and they came like,
Not to get too technical.
yeah, and you wrap them up like George, crazy man, wrapped each of them up in black plastic, so each can was pristine. I brought them to the lab, and they thought it was like hoaxing them, because like each one was preserved. I mean, this guy had been taking them around the world. It's like 25 years later, and they opened up the thing, and they were all perfect. And they at the lab they did the digital transfer with my dead grandma's money, and then we looked at the footage, and those guys at the lab, they were like, their jaws dropped, like, wow. And that's when I thought, okay. My first thought really wasn't like, okay, it's not wow. I didn't think wow, because I knew wow in the back of my head, because I knew what we had shot, and I remembered everything. But it was like, okay, phew, I'm not a crazy, deluded, crazy person. It was all true. It did happen. That was me. And then wow came later after that, and then I decided, like, okay, something has to happen, and maybe there's a movie in this. That's the long answer. I'm sorry, I'm so long.
No, that's
Okay.
exactly what I was
Okay.
asking you to do. I mean, while you were bearing it, I'm sure you were also thinking this through in different ways, but now that you've finished this film, do you think about what would have happened? Like, what do you think your life would be like if you had finished Shirkers at the time you shot it?
Okay, so this is what I always say, and because I'm a realist, and I know what people were like in those days, and they're not, okay, back then in that milieu in 1992 in Singapore, people were not so crazy about us kids making a film. They thought we were crazy, we were troublemakers, nobody was going to help us, nobody knew what film was, nobody was making films at all. And so like we were these oddballs doing this crazy, quixotic thing, and nobody, so I think if we had put this film together, the film hadn't been lost, and people, like, it's a crazy little film about a girl who goes around killing people, and and finding people, and I think we would have been laughed out of the, like, just like people would have mocked us, people would have been merciless, all our friends would have, all our frenemies would have hated us, And just all the grown-ups just have laughed at us so much that I would be a lawyer right now. I mean, I would be, I don't know, an accountant or something. I mean, I would not be in film. I think all of us would be something else. You know, in fact, the fact that this thing was never finished, I think we just had this kind of, I don't know, it's like dream and that was just kept alive somehow in this, you know, and so we all went on pursuing film and we just stayed in love with film and, you know, it's just, I think we would have been something else. And it would have been, I'm a pessimist. I'm an optimist about everything, but I'm a pessimist about people. And I think that we would have been treated so poorly that we would not have done, nobody would have done anything.
I will say that, you know, once you did the transfer, I did start hearing about the film. And I think one of the things I heard a little bit was about your negotiations with some of your friends and the people in the crew about being in the movie and how that was going to work out. So I will admit I was surprised when I saw the film because I think it's really a beautiful film about friendship. And I'm wondering if you can, again, like just talk about what it was like working with, you know, bringing this all back up with people that you have varying degrees of friendship with.
This was a great excuse because I'm actually a really horrible friend.
Not so much.
Okay, I'm just really bad about reaching out to my friends, and I need an excuse to reach out to them again. And this film provided a great excuse to reach out to my friends again, who I have been not so much in touch with. So like when we took this film to Sundance in January this year, that was the first time I think Jasmine, me, and Sophie had been in the same room in 20 years, which is like ridiculous. I mean, it's ridiculous because we're linked by this thing, this horrible, beautiful, crazy thing that happened to us all, and I just didn't feel like I had any right to be their friend or something. I'm so bad at this thing. You know, I'm really bad about calling him. I don't write, I don't call. And this was my excuse actually to talk to you, was to make you do the Q&A for this film. and we would never be talking about this stuff ever.
Well,
so
no, I would have asked you about it, but I was saving it. I'm saving it for the stage.
Yeah, but so that's what happened, and so it was great. I mean, to be at Sundance with these two, it was bizarre. They were, you know, happy and nervous. I think Jasmine was such a superstar. People love her. And I guess you kind of were amused by her too. I think she has this, you know, sudden aura that led a lot of people on the street. At Sundance, all these kids like running after her and shouting lines at her and mobbing her on the bus. And, you know, they were so thrilled to see her, except she didn't tell me any of this herself. Because to me, she was like, you know, congratulations, you've made a film that people will find entertaining and believe to be fact. and that's great. I mean, I love that she had a good time. I didn't have to hear it from her, but I heard it from my crew that was hanging out with her, and they said she had a great time. So that was the most important thing for me, that she had a great time. And I didn't have to hear it from her, because whenever she starts talking about how she was enjoying herself, whenever I entered the room, she was like, and she just shut up. And so, but for me, that was great. I mean, I you know, don't say anything. I know his sister's in this room, and it's just, you know, like, if anyone tells her any of this, I mean, it's all said lovingly, because my text, my phone is gonna go ding, 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 ding with like, what are you talking about? You know, otherwise, like, I'm never gonna hear the end of it. So I don't engage. So do not repeat this.
No live tweeting of this Q&A.
But Sophie's great. Thanks for asking. Sophie's really like everything that she is on the, you know, in the movie she is in real life. And the people who saw us at the Q&A thought I did a true representation of her and of them both, and that it was like them crawling off the screen and being on stage. And Sophie's just a genuinely, I think she's just thrilled, and also because she was thrilled because like she was so worried about like her school and her job mentioned, and it was like so. I was hoping she'd be okay with that, and then the president of Vassar, I think, shouted out, you know, like in a tweet or some congratulations to her because we got a really nice review in the New Yorker. And those people read the New Yorker, so he was like, you know, really, and then she was like, okay, it's fine, and she's proud, and she'll, you know, come along for the ride, and we're gonna have her do more Q&As and stuff.
Well, I have more questions, but I'm not gonna. I can talk to Sandy later. So, yeah, go ahead.
How do you feel about George now, looking back all these years?
You know, I think I think time is a very strange friend, and I think that George is a very strange friend too. I'm not angry. I'm not angry at all. I don't think I've been angry for a long time. Maybe I was angry when this was taken away from me and all that, but I really, I'm so much more sympathetic to him because I'm now like kind of his age when he was with us back then, and I feel like time has gone backwards. I feel like I'm 16 now, and I can feel that maybe he felt like he was, younger in spirit, and I'm so much more sympathetic to what might have been going through his head, and I think he's just someone who I don't think pity is the right word. I just think that he's really talented. He's a great storyteller, still the best storyteller I've ever met, I think. But he's just not somebody who creates, I think he creates by destroying and stealing, and that's his form of creation. The way his life story is his work, and what he does to people is his work, and he's the master of his own, his narrative is his art, I guess, the narrative of his own life as he narrates it by living it, and what he does to everyone else. I'm more sympathetic than a lot of people think I should be, because I think that this was a very strange gift that he gave back to us, and a very strange, that I'm ready to deal with it now, and I made this film and got back together with all my friends, and it's a really, really complicated question, but I do think what he stole from, he stole actually a lot from all these people who thought they could have been actors. I think the woman who played the nurse is fantastic. She could have had a different life if if this film had been completed or somebody had seen her. And I think a lot of the people who worked on it, like all these 18-year-old production designers, these kids that did this amazing stuff. I mean, they weren't as effective as I was because it wasn't really their film, but they did a lot of work on this, and they would have had maybe different ideas of themselves and their careers and what could have, and so it's not just about me, it's about them too. And I think his ex-wife / widow, I think she probably suffered the most. So in that situation, I think he's not, I don't think anyone should forgive him for that, and I think, so I would feel, that he was, that I would be harshest on him for that. Yeah.
In the middle towards the back.
Did you ever consider completing the film as you originally intended?
A lot of people have asked us that, and I think that, with some creative people willing to work for very little money, like talented editors and, people who can do music and stuff, and we could come up with something very interesting, because the script does exist, and they could do a very creative rendition of this. The only problem is dubbing. I think dubbing is really tacky. And we do have to dub, otherwise it's a silent movie that we'll have to play at the Silent Movie Festival, run by Anita Monga. So that would be something to consider. I think, I will have to talk to people about that, and yeah.
We'll go there first. Yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful film.
Thank you.
My question is, so in the documentary you said that when Shirkers was taken away from you, they also took away like your troublemaker, filmmaker spirit. Now that you've made this movie, do you think that it has returned to you, and can we expect more original work from you?
Original work. Yes, I hope so. I don't think my troublemaker spirit was completely taken away, but it is. I'm as an old person, I will be the older version of that maybe. But yeah, I'm definitely much more energized by having done this, and the fact that people can see that I can do things, and I'm not just talking like a crazy person again about what I can do, but I actually have proof, maybe. And so I'm busy with lots of different projects that I'm spinning. So yeah.
How is the environment like for filmmakers in Singapore? I
I don't live there. I don't live there. I've not lived there in 20 years.
But
I-
I'm just going to repeat that question, which was, what was the environment like for filmmakers in
At the
Singapore at the
I
time?
know the government has like censorship, like restricted freedom of speech, and I was following this news of like a YouTuber getting arrested for like criticizing
The film critic.
government.
Oh,
He was like actually
yeah.
jailed for like a couple months.
yeah. I don't live there now. You're asking about back then?
Yes.
Back then, nobody was doing anything, so there was no knowledge of what to censor from Singapore, but they could censor everything else, which is why I had to, be very creative when I watched a bunch of, you saw it, so you know, like how I had to go across the causeway to Malaysia to get pirated, VHSs of like Coen Brothers movies, and that's how I got my addiction. But back then there was nothing going on. I mean, there was really nothing going on. And that movie Medium Rare was just like, anyway, that was what was going on, and that was it. So it was just us, and that's why we were such anomalous people, and that's also why it was so freeing, because we could go into Kodak and say, we're just kids, we just want to play and just like we have some cameras and we just want to like experiment with some film. We have like short ends and stuff, and they would give us all this. I mean, so this entire thing was shot in free film, because like every few days we would run out of film, and then like Jasmine and Sophie would go and beg them for film again, and they just like somehow gave us enough that we would shoot this over like 2.5 months. And it was 2.5 months because so George and I were obsessed with Nestor Almendros, the guy who shot like Days of Heaven, and it's so beautiful because they shot at magic hour every day. And so in Singapore, the light is really harsh in the tropics. And so we waited to shoot at magic hour every day, which is like, in the tropics, it lasts like 10 minutes. So we like when you're a kid, you think that's sane. So we did that. And that's why it looks the way it does. But, so there was the flip side of nothing going on in Singapore back then was that it was completely freeing. And I keep telling everybody who's young here and everywhere, young people of all ages, it's that like now you have all this fucking the phone. I mean, you could use that to shoot anytime. I mean, you could do so much stuff that we couldn't do, and we're just like, we were so hungry to shoot. We were so hungry to make a movie, and now you have all this stuff with you, and you can just do it. It's just, I don't know, it seems extremely wasteful not to do anything.
All right, we have time for one more, and there was a hand up. Yes, go ahead.
I was just curious if this film is being shown in Singapore, and if so, like, what's the reception?
Well, when it comes on Netflix in the fall, in October, so.
The question was about if the film had been shown in Singapore, or
Yeah,
whether-
it hasn't been shown because we're still on the festival circuit, and in the fall it's going to be released internationally on every cell phone and watch and whatever around the world. So yeah, it will be seen there. It'll be seen everywhere. It'll be seen in people with VPNs in Lapland and Vietnam and holes in the ground. If you want to access Netflix, I think that it can be arranged. So I just that's the thing. I mean, I really want everyone to see this. I really think that this, I think this is great theater. I just love Brett. Thank you so much for projecting this so beautifully, and the sound was perfect. I gave him instructions, by the way. This projection is gave him instructions today on a Facebook thread about this museum. And he was on the thread, and I said, "Can you play at Dolby 7, please?" And blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so he did, and it's beautiful. Anyway, but I think that this film can be. I want this film to be seen by kids of all ages, but kids in remote places that you wouldn't have MoMA near you. You wouldn't have an art house near you. You wouldn't have. I mean, I want people to see this any way they can with their earbuds, or hearing me talk to them and tell them to go do stuff. And hopefully that's the message to get. Just go and do stuff. And that's why I think it's going to be a great thing.
Well, I'm sure. Yes, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for coming.
This documentary is pretty interesting. I like it, and better pray for the dub version. The redone redub version. Yeah. Good scenery for documentary, by the way. Yeah. So, I give it my ghost dumps and my visible ghost dumps. So, yup. Catch you soon, movie.